Hi everybody, welcome back once again to the Eastfield Gunroom YouTube channel, and today we have got something so exciting, so out of the ordinary, you are not going to believe it. You know, we've looked at some mainstream Brownings, Berettas, Miracous, we've looked at some very rare Miracous, some Nikos, but this thing absolutely eclipses them all. Today we are going to have a look at the sensational round body over and under from David McKay Brown. Now, I'm the first to admit this is not my area of expertise. You know, I'm more into kind of the Japanese, Italian guns, that kind of stuff. So, you know, I would welcome anybody's thoughts, comments about this particular gun, what they think of it, you know, tell me a bit more about it. I've done a little bit of research, obviously. So I'm going to kick off, and we have got a David McKay Brown over and under single trigger shotgun. A little bit of history, like I always like to do. David McKay Brown, a Scottish gentleman. He worked as an apprentice for Alex Martin in Glasgow and also John Dixon in Edinburgh, very famous Scottish gunmakers. And he decided in 1967 to go it alone, having learned the tricks of the trade for many years. And what he decided to do was resurrect the round body shotgun. So John Dixon, which is certainly a famous gunmaker in terms of the round body design, he took everything he learned from there, set up on his own. And in 1974, he produced his first round body side by side. Now, if we talk about what we've talked about in previous videos, you go back to the 1970s, the majority of people were shooting side by sides for game. You'd have got the odd person shooting it over and under, a bit like the clay circuit. You still shot side by side if you went out shooting clays. And, you know, at the time, it was all largely side by side, particularly in the English or the Scottish gun trade. As things changed, as things developed, things moved on. People started to have different requirements, different needs from their shotguns. And that's when David started to look more towards the over and under. And in 1992, he set out to produce his first over and under round body shotgun. Now, you're not going to believe what I'm going to say next. Here at Eastfield Gunroom, we like to get rare guns. We like to source exceptional examples, guns people have never heard of. And this, believe it or not, is the very first over and under McKay Brown shotgun. Now, this gun commenced in 1992 with the build. It was completed in 1994. We know that because we've got the David McKay Brown book, which we'll show you shortly, and that gives a list of all the serial numbers and when they were completed. And I'm just so excited to have it. So let's have a look. Kicking off, it is, as many people have referred to David McKay Brown as, the resurrector of the round body. Be like myself, okay? It's a round body action. It's kind of a Woodward style boss design, so it's low profile. If you compared it to a modern day gun, it's very much like a Parazzi in terms of the design of it. But I mean, this thing, elegant is just not the word. It is absolute knockout. Now, despite having been around guns for a number of years, I've never come across too many English, in this case, of course, Scottish, over and unders. It's usually been side by side from the likes of Wesley, Holland, Purdy. I've seen them all, but I've not seen many over and unders. I've never ever seen a McKay Brown round body over and under. So this is an exciting moment for me as well. Now, this gun is a 28-inch gun, out and out game gun. Now, David was very famous for favouring quarter choke. A lot of his guns, regardless of the barrel length, you will see are kind of quarter. This is no exception. This gun is quarter choke. Got a push button forend, which is kind of a boss style, I understand, because you've got this full length recess where the forend sits in. I mean, look at the attention to detail, the quality and the manufacture. Now, this one's quite interesting because it's bored at 18.7, which is not typically what you would expect for a game gun. You would expect more nominal bores, more tighter bores. However, having said that, it's got the proof marks there from 1993, nitro proof, London proof marks, and just feeling the barrel, just holding the barrel, as you can see, this is a thing of absolute exceptional quality. Solid game rib, not ventilated. Barrels aren't ventilated as you would expect on a game gun. Completely hand file cut, 6mm rib all the way through with a brass bead on the end. So the whole thing is completely game specification, if you like. Then we pick up the serious end. Now, it's quite interesting, this gun retains quite a lot of its original case colour hardening. Now, I don't think we've actually looked at a gun that was case colour hardened. Having said that, no, we did do the Gamba, so do check the review out of that. And, you know, like I said, it retains quite a lot of the original colour, and case colour hardening is very interesting because you can get some manufacturers that, because of the style that they use in the manufacturing process, you can get some very deep blues, greens, purples, that kind of stuff. But traditionally, English case colour hardening, I would say, is a lot more subtle. So what we've got this mottled effect on the back strap here. safety catch, safe in gold. Obviously, the whole thing is completely hand engraved. As I mentioned before, a gentleman called Colin Lee engraved this gun, and it was actually spec'd as per the book as a medium scroll. You know, this is the kind of traditional scroll that you get on Scottish over and unders or Scottish side by sides. You know, I've seen some Mckay Browns before, which tend to be this similar kind of coverage, which is kind of Celtic kind of scroll work, which is really, really nicely finished. You've got the little ribbon in the middle with David McKay Brown. And if you look on the underneath where the barrels open into the action, you know, it's just a standard over under. It looks a bit like a Beretta, if you like. You've got the little mouth, hello, okay. And, you know, the round body, a blue trigger, nicely engraved trigger guard. You know, you've got a full tank trigger guard here with the serial number on, which again is something you tend to get on English guns. Not really modern day guns like Parazzis and stuff, or Berettas that have got a full tang pistol grip trigger guard. Unusual to not have a rolled trigger guard. You know, let's not forget this is a gun of absolute quality, and I would have thought, but again, if it was spec'd for someone particularly didn't want a rolled trigger guard, then that's probably why it hasn't got one. All the engraved screws here, even got a keeper screw. Again, a sign of absolute quality when you've got a screw to keep in a screw, if that makes any sense. And we move into the action. You've got these carved fences here, again hand engraved by Mr. Lee. All the nice colour case hardening around the top, colour remaining on the inside of the action, and it's just the thing of absolute beauty. Now it actually weighs £7, which was a bit of a shock to me when I first weighed it, because I would have thought it was probably a little bit lighter than that, but then you look at the fact that it's got a solid game rib, you've got this kind of elongated pit where the fore end sits into. There's quite a lot going on, so yeah, I think £7. And as a usable gun for kind of ground shooting, particularly because of the chokes, or for driven game. Let's not forget this gun was built back in the 1990s. At the time, the seriously high birds that we experience here in the UK today weren't really the intended quarry. There was a lot more lowland stuff, and that's why we've got shorter barrels, lighter chokes. So we just pop it together. Feels absolutely superb. Just pop the forend back on. We spoke about the forend a little bit, but you've got this completely hand engraved ironwork at the end. You've got, was that triple? There's like 47 points checkering. Very, very fine checkering, probably 26 plus lines per inch. The forend iron I particularly like here. Again, it's like a big, looks like Garfield's face. It's like a big smiley cat on the bottom of there. Nicely blued furniture. It's just a very, very nice thing. Now moving on to the stock, unusually, but again, although the gun looks like it could have been made in the 1920s, it wasn't. It was made much later than that. It's got quite a long stock. It's just under 15 inches, 375mm. Very, very nice sort of English traditional half pistol grip with the vacant oval. If you look at the back end of the stock is nicely checkered. It just feels beautiful. It's probably, like I said, the first time I've really had a good look at English stroke Scottish, British made over and under, and you just can't fail to be impressed by this. In terms of balance, like I say, it weighs £7. Absolutely perfect. So what we've got here is without doubt a piece of history. You know, at the time that this gun was manufactured, David wasn't making too many guns. If you look in the book, it's a sort of single numbers a year. Moving on to today, David is now retired, having firmly cemented his name into the British Gunmaking Hall of Fame. Highly respected. His guns throughout the world, particularly in the States. Hello to all our American viewers. I know there's quite a lot. Very, very highly regarded, much sought after, and you can still go and buy one today. The current situation of the business, the name still exists. The company is now owned by a gentleman called Grant Buchan, and you can still go to Mckay Brown, have a gun spec'd exactly like this if you wish. You know, again, we're talking about guns that have been manufactured from scratch to your exact specifications. You might have a different style of checkering, you might have a different style of engraving, you might have full colour case hardening. Whatever your desire, I'm sure they will be able to accommodate you accordingly. As you would expect with a premium product, we have got an absolutely beautiful piece of walnut. Difficult to say exactly where it's from. It may be French. It's certainly got the colour and the patination of a French piece of walnut. Very, very nicely figured. Before producing this video, I did have a look around at some other guns that were available that got the same, you know, Mckay Brown label on them. And to be fair, this was the best piece of wood that I could find amongst them. The fact that it's quite a long stock as well just adds to the fact that it's a very, very currently desirable thing. Original full leather case, as you would expect with a gun of this quality. We've got leather corners, brass locks. This tends to be the standard across the board. If you get an old English gun, 9 times out of 10, the handle's broke, so we're not disappointing you there, are we, folks? Original trade label with the Mckay Brown address, which again is just adds to the whole, you know, the warm fuzzy feeling you get with these British-made shotguns. You know, you just get the whole presentation. And to top it off, we've also got some genuine Mckay Brown snap caps. We talked earlier about the fact that this gun is catalogued in the Mckay Brown book. This gun, serial number 7501, the very first gun that David ever produced in an over and under specification. I mean, how special is this? If you're a fan of British gun making, this is a genuine once in a lifetime opportunity. You are essentially, with this gun, you would be owning a museum piece. It is that incredible. If you're a fan of British gun making and you appreciate, you know, the craftsmanship of old, obviously the gun trade here in the UK from sort of 1880 to 1950 was absolutely massive. It's sadly no longer what it once was, just because of the fact that people are now using, you know, more cost-effective continental options, if you like. But the gun trade in the UK here in terms of top gun makers still exists very much so. We've got David McKay Brown, we've got Wesley Richards, we've got Boss, Hollands, Purdy, some of the most prestigious brands in the world without question. What tends to happen is when you come across manufacturers that are kind of like this, they tend to retain guns of this magnitude in their kind of personal collection, their museum. I've been to the Beretta private collection many times, and all the guns that have got any kind of bearing in there, they're still there and they're happy to retain them because it's a part of their history, it's a part of their heritage, and they don't want to let it go. So when something comes up like this, it is really a wow moment. Now, we talked earlier about the Mckay Brown book, which I'm going to just grab for you here. Okay, there's the man himself. Very talented man, as we've just discussed. If you are able to obtain a copy of this book, I would highly recommend it. I'm not a book boffin by any means, but I've only read a bit of it and I am hooked. Obviously, I'm fascinated with shotguns. This is very different to the kind of shotguns I deal with on a day-to-day basis, so I'm always happy to learn stuff. And, you know, this man, absolute magician in terms of what he's produced. This gun is catalogued in there. We aren't just telling you a tall tale here. This is genuinely the very first over and under round body shotgun produced by David McKay Brown in 1994. I understand there was also a pair that, although they were started later, they were finished earlier. But this bears the serial number of the first over and under round body, single trigger as well, shotgun. If you've got any questions about this particular gun, please contact me directly. Don't forget to check out the website. Don't forget to keep liking and subscribing the channel. So from me, Matthew Morgan, the Eastfield Gunroom, and the once in a lifetime opportunity Mckay Brown round body, I'll see you again soon.